This guide covers all the actions the Dragoon learns from level 51 to 90 in order. We go over how each action is meant to be used and recommend ways to use it when relevant. We also summarize the changes in the combat rotation at level 60, 70 and 80. In the final summary, we outline an optimized opener and explain how it leads into the general rotation, and also touch on the stat priorities of the Dragoon. I will assume you already know the basics of Dragoon from level 1 to 50, and if not, you can view my Dragoon starter guide to get caught up. I will also assume you are acquainted with common abbreviations like GCD, OGCD, and weaving. And if these abbreviations are unfamiliar to you, I have a short describing GCDs and OGCDs, and a short describing weaving. Now then, at level 52, you learn the ability Battle Litany, which buffs you and your party's critical hit rate on a 2-minute cooldown. In your opener, weave Battle Litany alongside Lance Charge right after Disembowel, Lance Charge first. Battle Litany will naturally line up with every second Lance Charge, and they should be used together as best as you can. At level 54, Jump and Spine Shatter Dive get a potency boost. This does not change your rotation. At level 56, you learn the weapon skill Fang and Claw, which functions as a combo finisher after full thrust. This changes your looping rotation to be 1 Chaos Thrust combo and 2 full thrust combos, including Fang and Claw of course. For 2 targets, use 2 sets of Chaos Thrust and 1 set of full thrust. Fang and Claw also does additional damage when used from the flank or side of the target. This means the part of the targeting reticle that is not the open part and not near the front-facing arrow. Life Surge should still be used on full thrust specifically. At level 58, you learn the weapon skill Wheeling Thrust, which, similar to Fang and Claw, functions as a combo finisher after Chaos Thrust. In the same exact way, you should always follow up Chaos Thrust with Wheeling Thrust, which also does extra damage from the rear of an enemy, just like Chaos Thrust. Aside from this, your rotation is mostly unchanged. On 3 or 4 targets, you can skip Wheeling Thrust if you performed a Chaos Thrust combo to get the Disembowel buff. At level 60, you learn the ability Gaia's Goggle, which does decent damage in a line in front of you. At the start of a fight, you should delay this ability to after Lance Charge and Battle Litany, but before Jump. After that, Gaia's Goggle should be used on cooldown as much as possible. On AoE, make sure to line yourself up so that you hit as many enemies as possible. Since level 50, your opener has been adjusted by adding Gaia's Goggle and Battle Litany to it. At the same time, your GCD rotation has been more concentrated by including Fang and Claw and Wheeling Thrust. At this level, open with True Thrust, Disembowel and weave Lance Charge and Battle Litany. Then use Chaos Thrust, weaving Gaia's Goggle. Then use Wheeling Thrust, weaving Jump. True Thrust, weaving Dragonfire Dive, and then Vorpal Thrust, weaving Spine Shatter Dive and Life Surge, finishing with Full Thrust. You can still delay Spine Shatter Dive to after the Full Thrust if this is a bit difficult. Then you alternate between 2 sets of Full Thrust combos and 1 set of Chaos Thrust combos. At level 62, you learn Sonic Thrust, a combo follow-up from Doom Spike. Sonic Thrust also applies the damage buff from Disembowel, so now you can ignore Disembowel and Chaos Thrust on 3 or more targets. On AoE, you should use Life Surge with Sonic Thrust. At level 64, you get the trait Lance Mastery, which makes the Chaos Thrust combo extend with Fang and Claw after Wheeling Thrust, and the Full Thrust combo extend with Wheeling Thrust after Fang and Claw. Take note that this step 5 combo piece will do 100 extra potency, meaning when the positional is done correctly, they hit just as hard as Full Thrust. This means that you can use Life Surge for these actions just as well as you can use it on Full Thrust, assuming you do the positional. With these 5-step combo sequences, you should simply alternate between the 2 combos back and forth, rather than repeating either one at all. On 2 targets, you can still do 2 Chaos Thrust combos to apply the dot to both targets. At level 66, you learn the ability Dragon Sight, which boosts your damage as well as one other player of your choice's damage. Always make sure to target another party member when using Dragon Sight to not waste this extra damage. Many Dragoons find this more easily done using either a mouse over macro or a focus target macro. The mouse over option lets you point your cursor at whoever you want to share with, while focus target requires you to make use of the focus target feature, and then hope that player is alive every time you intend to use Dragon Sight. This adjusts your opener somewhat. Start with True Thrust Disembowel, and then weave Lance Charge and Dragon Sight. Then Chaos Thrust and weave Battle Litany and Spine Shatter Dive. Then do Wheeling Thrust, weaving Gaia's Goggle and Life Surge. Then use Fang and Claw Weaving Jump, followed by True Thrust and Dragonfire Dive. If you find it difficult to line up the positional for Fang and Claw, you can weave True North after the initial True Thrust to make this trivial. Additionally, if double weaving Spine Shatter Dive causes you problems, weave it after the Vorpal Thrust that follows after Dragonfire Dive. At level 68, you learn the ability Mirage Dive, and Jump is permanently upgraded to Grand Dive Ready. While Dive Ready, you can use Mirage Dive, and of course, you should always do this. Simply weave Mirage Dive immediately after Jump in your opener, and whenever Jump comes up in your rotation. If you find it difficult to weave Mirage Dive like this, remember that Dive Ready lasts 15 seconds, giving you plenty of room to use it when it is convenient. At level 70, you learn the trait Life of the Dragon, alongside the ability Nasrond. Whenever you use Mirage Dive, you gain a stack of Gaze on your brand new Dragon Gauge. When you have 2 stacks, using Gaia's Goggle makes you enter Life of the Dragon, which replaces Gaia's Goggle with Nasrond, a more powerful version with a shorter cooldown. You are in this state for 20 seconds, enabling you to do 2 Nasronds in this time, and you should make sure to do this. Now, this does not actually change your opener at all. In fact, it is intentional that Gaia's Goggle is lined up to be used before Jump and Mirage Dive. This ensures that Life of the Dragon lines up with all your cooldowns available every minute, or 2 minutes in case of Dragon Sight and Battle Litany. Try to line it up such that all 3 damage boosting cooldowns are used close enough to Gaia's Goggle such that they last for both Nastrons. There are some tricks you can do with the Life of the Dragon for particular burst situations, like when a fight is drawing to its end. I cover these tricks in a very short separate video specifically about Life of the Dragon, which, if you want to master Dragoon, you may find very helpful. Since level 60, you have unlocked Life of the Dragon and Nasrond. Your looping combos also were extended to 5-step combos, not to mention Dragon Sight and Mirage Dive. This changes your opener as follows: True Thrust, optionally weaving True North, then Disembowel, weaving Lance Charge and Dragon Sight, Chaos Thrust, weaving Battle Litany and Spine Shatter Dive, Wheeling Thrust, weaving Gaia's Goggle and Life Surge, Fang and Claw, weaving Jump and Mirage Dive, and then finish with True Thrust weaving Dragonfire Dive. Then simply alternate between your 2 5-step combos. Every minute, Gaia's Goggle will lead into Life of the Dragon, adding 2 extra OGCDs to use. As a guideline, I recommend placing the first Nasrond instead of Mirage Dive, delaying Mirage Dive to 1 GCD later. The second Nasrond typically will not be in the way of any other actions in your bursts. At level 72, you learn the weapon skill Curtain Torment, which is a combo finisher for your AoE combo after Sonic Thrust. You should use Life Surge on Curtain Torment on 3 or more targets. At level 74, Jump is permanently upgraded to High Jump, increasing its potency. This does not change your rotation. At level 76, the potency of True Thrust, Vorpal Thrust and Disembowel are all increased. Additionally, when you finish a 5-step combo, you gain the Draconian Fire buff, which turns True Thrust into Radiant Thrust, which basically just increases its potency. Neither of these upgrades change your rotation at all. At level 78, Life of the Dragon is extended to 30 seconds, allowing you to fit an extra Nasrond every time you enter this state. This does not change how you use it, as the 3rd Nasrond will simply never be able to fit into your buff windows. At level 80, you learn the ability Stardiver, which is available once every time you enter Life of the Dragon. Take note that Stardiver takes a lot longer to resolve than all your other OGCDs, to the point that it is simply not possible to double weave anything alongside Stardiver. This should also be considered if you need to move, as Stardiver locks your position for about a full second, if not more. Do your best to fit Stardiver within your buffs, however, as there is a 30-second window on when to use it, you can quite freely place it where it fits best. Since level 70, your AoE combo got extended with Curtain Torment. Stardiver and an extra use of Nasrond was added to your burst every minute. During Life of the Dragon, I recommend prioritizing Nasrond over Mirage Dive, and as long as it lands within your buffs, Stardiver can be delayed until all other cooldowns have been spent. At level 82, Curtain Torment is upgraded to also grant the Draconian Fire buff. Additionally, Doomspike turns into Draconian Fury when you have Draconian Fire. This does not change how you use it at all. At level 84, Spine Shatter Dive is upgraded to hold 2 charges. You can now more easily choose to save a charge for mobility if you need it later in the rotation. If you don't, you can add Spine Shatter Dive at the very end of your opener and your bursts. Rather than use Spine Shatter Dive once every minute, you should try to stockpile 2 for every 2 minutes to use alongside Dragon Sight and Battle Litany. This does, however, also give you 1 charge available to use for mobility you don't expect, at least half the time. At level 86, Full Thrust and Chaos Thrust are upgraded to Heaven's Thrust and Chaotic Spring, boosting their potency significantly. The only significant thing this changes is that Heaven's Thrust is stronger than your 5-step combo finishers. For your opener, this means you should delay Life Surge till after Vorpal Thrust, but in all other cases this does not change much, as it is better to use Life Surge on a step 5 with buffs up than waiting until you can use Heaven's Thrust with Life Surge but without buffs. This does make the use of Life Surge a bit convoluted, but here is a priority to follow. 1. Heaven's Thrust with any buff. 2. Step 5 combo piece with both Lance Charge and Dragon Sight. 3. Heaven's Thrust with no buffs. As I mentioned, at this specific level, it is optimal to delay that initial Life Surge till after Vorpal Thrust in your opener. However, at level 88, Life Surge is upgraded to be able to hold 2 charges. In your opener, this of course adds Life Surge back in after the Wheeling Thrust. Additionally, being able to store 2 charges allows you to be more picky with when you choose to use Life Surge. In particular, you can delay Life Surges to always be within Lance Charge and use them according to the priority described previously. Remember, even if you can fit 1 Life Surge every odd minute and 2 every even minute, this may not always be optimal depending on where you are in your loop at any given time. It is not a bad starting point to just only use Life Surge during Lance Charge though. At level 90, Gaius Gogol and Nastrond get a potency boost, which changes nothing for your rotation. More importantly, your Dragon Gauge is extended with the First Mind's Focus. Whenever you use Radiant Thrust or Draconian Fury, you gain 1 First Mind's Focus, and when you have 2, you can use the new ability Wormwind Thrust. You should use Wormwind Thrust whenever it is available, but in case your damage boosting cooldowns are ready within the next 10 seconds or so, 5 seconds for AoE, you can delay Wormwind Thrust until just before your next Radiant Thrust or Draconian Fury to line it up with these buffs for extra damage. As you need to perform 2 full 5-step combos to access Wormwind Thrust, it is not really a part of the opener. However, some raid cooldowns may be long enough that they are still active when you can cast Wormwind Thrust, so you may want to immediately use the first one you get. To round off, let's first talk about an opener followed by general rotation, and then about the Dragoon's stat priorities on gear. Let's begin. Around 3 seconds before pull, use Sprint and make ready to move into range. Start with True Thrust. If you intend to use a tincture, a so-called burst potion, this is a great time to do so. Alternatively, you can weave True North here, but take note that you cannot do both. Then use Disembowel, weaving Lance Charge and Dragon Sight. Chaotic Spring, weaving Battle Litany and Spine Shatter Dive. Then do Wheeling Thrust, weaving Gaius Gogol and Life Surge, followed by Fang and Claw, weaving High Jump and Mirage Dive. Then use Radiant Thrust, weaving Dragonfire Dive, and finish up with Vorpal Thrust, weaving another Spine Shatter Dive and Life Surge, leading into Heaven's Thrust. Finish the 5-step combo and use Wormwind Thrust as soon as possible. This then leads to the general rotation. For your GCD, you simply alternate between the 2 5-step combos forever and fit OGCDs wherever they match throughout. With the exception of Spine Shatter Dive and Life Surge, you pretty much want to use all of your cooldowns the instant they come up, of course weaving them properly. Remember that every minute, Life of the Dragon comes up, which adds 2 Nastronds and Stardiver to your burst, not to mention an extra Nastrond after your buffs drop. A particular reason for why it is so important to keep Gaius Gogol and Jump relatively close to each other in cooldown is that this allows you, at a much smaller cost, to flip their order when a fight is about to end. Flipping the order will allow you to perform 2 Life of the Dragons back to back, once, for the cost of delaying Gaius Gogol by around 5 seconds. This is mostly helpful if you know the fight will not last long enough for another Lance Charge anyway. The video about Life of the Dragon I mentioned earlier explains this in a bit more detail. Spine Shatter Dive should be used in pairs every 2 minutes, or used for mobility to minimize the time you run around with a ready GCD in combat. Life Surge should either be used during Lance Charge, or when the priority we discussed earlier makes it worth it. For 3 or more targets, you replace your GCD combos entirely with the AoE combo, but everything else is unchanged. Finally, regarding stat priorities, take note that in nearly every single case, item level beats out optimal secondary stats. This means you should always prioritize gear with higher item level as long as it has strength on it. After that, Dragoon's stat priority is critical hit, then determination and direct hit, and finally skill speed. Determination and direct hit are almost identical in value, with determination being a tiny bit better, so given the choice between the two, it should be preferred. Skill speed is not very helpful to Dragoons, but it is not so bad that you should toss an item that also has a lot of critical hit on it, just because it has skill speed. Dragoons do prefer minimal skill speed though. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me and my channel, you can like the video, leave a comment, subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when next I post a video. If you want to give even more support than that, you can also become a member of the channel. Fun fact, in Shadowbringers, Lance Charge's cooldown was 90 seconds, and similarly Life Surge's cooldown was 45 seconds. Since then, Endwalker has made both of these cooldowns perfectly line up with even minute raid buff timings. Before Shadowbringers, Lance Charge was called Blood for Blood and also caused you to take more damage.